Welcome to the In Between podcast. Today I'm talking with Taylor Chaney, disability activist and founder of the Garden Foundation and Dig It Coffee Co. The Garden Foundation is a nonprofit organization out of Las Vegas that enhances the lives of people with disabilities by providing a place of education, inspiration, independence, and inclusion. Dig It Coffee Co. is a social enterprise coffee company serving the Las Vegas community. Dig It provides competitive wage job opportunities for adults of all abilities while serving some of the best locally roasted coffee in town. Taylor aims to spread joy and inclusion in Las Vegas and beyond. Taylor, I am so excited to have you on the In Between podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, we were just talking about all of our different connections, and besides that, I work virtually, and so I've worked from your coffee shop a couple different times, and it is exactly that, joy and delicious coffee. So thank you so much for creating that space.
Goal achieved. So thank you.
It really is. Like, you cannot be sitting in that space and not be having a smile and laughing and all the things. So you definitely have accomplished that.
Thank you. That means a lot. Thank you.
Yes. Well, I would love to go back to, I believe my research is correct, 1989, where you found your purpose. Yes. And someone came into the world and just changed your life. So Would you tell us what happened that year?
You're so sweet. So that was the year my little sister was born, and we're only 16 months apart. And my little sister, Lindsay, was born with Down syndrome. It was a surprise to my family. They received that diagnosis when my sister was born.
Wow.
Yeah. And really, although, as you can imagine, the emotions that come with a diagnosis for my parents, I was clearly much too young. All of that can kind of come with a diagnosis, really was turned into exactly as you shared, my life's purpose. And so I'm extremely grateful to this day that I've had the opportunity to grow up with someone who's taught me more in life than I think I could learn elsewhere. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to now love and work with and be really passionate about a community, people with disabilities who have changed my life along with my sister.
Absolutely. And to have your sister be the foundation of that is just so much greater than any purpose you could ever ask for. So I think that's so incredible. How was that experience growing up? Obviously, you guys were very close in age. Do you remember a time when you realized that maybe she was different and she wasn't, you guys were you had different abilities?
Yeah. It's funny because I don't necessarily remember a time, because my parents really, I think, did a fantastic job of raising us the same. And I had expectations, my sister had expectations, but they did tell me a story when I was little of us playing out. We had a swing set in the backyard. So, we're playing on the swings and on the slides. And as the eldest daughter, I was quite bossy. And
That's me too.
Right? I talked too much. I was bossy, all that. So apparently I was kind of, barking orders as an older sister does, of like, okay, this is how we're going to play. This is what you need to do. And giving her the rules of playtime. And, my dad then kind of pulled me aside. And I want to say they said I was maybe around 5 and said, listen, Lindsay is different. And she's going to do things on her own time. So you can, have expectations for her and that sort of thing. But I still don't think I understood, right? And I think in a good way, in a beautiful way, until I got to school. And I think that's when I realized, oh, I understand now where Lindsay is different, right? She didn't have verbal communication skills and was doing different things than I was doing in school. And kids can be mean, right? And so it was then at that time that I think things started to register of what the conversation that my dad and I had that day.
I love that. I think it's beautiful, your perspective from the sibling side as you were speaking, because personally, I had my brother, he passed away, I think it was almost 10 years ago now, from leukemia. And when he was sick and he was going through his treatment, there's such a power in the sibling perspective, I think, and it gets overshadowed a lot. And obviously, the two diagnoses are very different, but the sibling perspective was something I became so passionate about after he passed and the grieving, because I would look around and I would look at all these siblings, and obviously life changes so fast, and suddenly we're focused on one of the kids. I'm like, man, they just don't get their story told enough, or they don't get their perspective shared enough.
Totally.
as the sibling, did you ever feel any sort of negative emotions towards it, or feel like, when did it really turn into this passion that you have? I can't imagine it's been that way from day one.
Yeah, you know what's so interesting, and I don't want to speak for all siblings, because as I've grown up and, become an advocate and really been a part of this community, I think all siblings are very different in the way that they've grown up and maybe just the way that they are intrinsically. I think I love about my story is that I have seen the positive side of my sister's diagnoses, and not that everything was perfect. We still had fights as siblings and all of those kinds of things. And I think I wished for some sort of normalcy in that sibling relationship of like, I want her to talk with me and I want to have some of those things that other siblings do get to have. And maybe you have that shared experience where as your brother was going through things, you were like, but I want this sense of normalcy in a sibling relationship. And so I sought that. But at the same time, I have always been very protective of her. And I actually have reports from school reports from when I was little in the 3rd grade. And I have this article and I saved it, and it says, Down syndrome diagnosis disaster, or so I thought. And I wrote this article as a 3rd grader,
So
right?
cute.
And she's my little sister. And I was very proud of it. I like to talk about it. I like to share about it. But it was different than having Lindsay with me. I think sometimes when we would go out together and kids, were verbally unkind, or people would stare or things like that, I think that made me sad, but it also brought out this very protective nature of me for her. And so, yeah, again, not that everything was sunshine and rainbows, and certainly I did wish for some normalcy, but there was a part of me that I think has just grown up in this natural protector and natural advocate for her, because she didn't have a voice, and I felt like I wanted to be that for her.
Mm-hmm. That's so powerful too, that you're able to now obviously do that with your career and what you've built. When did you feel the tug to build something bigger that gave a voice to these incredible kids?
Yeah, that didn't come for much later. So obviously growing up with my sister, I had always been engaged in the disability community, whether it was volunteering or, sitting on different boards, or a lot of volunteering within the sector. And I had always loved it and been engaged. But I did lead my own personal career, if you will. So I went away to college. I went to UNR, and I got a great job after college, and I traveled a lot. I was a business development manager in a corporate industry, and I led this life, but I still had this volunteerism. So I ran the Down Syndrome Learning Program at the Down Syndrome Organization of Southern Nevada. And it was my way of giving back. Obviously, it wasn't paid. It was just what I loved to do. And I thought, man, this is just, it's what lit me up, right? But it wasn't until, so my sister left school. Obviously, when you're an adult with a disability, you can stay in school up until the age of 22. And at that point, your journey with the school system ends. And unfortunately, families and individuals are kind of left to navigate that journey on their own, right? Like, what am I going to do? Where do I go? How do I continue learning? Is there a career path? Like, what does that look like? You're kind of said like, all right, well, I know you've had this path laid out for you within the school system, and now that ends, you're on your own. And it typically is one of the toughest transitions for individuals and for families. And when that happened for my sister, we found an organization here in town, and Lindsay attended there for a few years. Because my sister has a lot of needs, she's nonverbal, she needs assistance using the restroom, she needs assistance eating. Unfortunately, what we found is that she became a number within a system. And that was really hard. As I'm sure you can imagine and empathize that, like, as a sibling, you want to see your person gifted with the same opportunities that you have, and you want them to have some of these same experiences. And I was really passionate about that. So it was very hard to see her go through something where you just wanted more for her. That is how I felt. And so in advocating for her alongside my parents, I felt like that's when I really stepped into the role of advocate when you kind of see things start to go not in the direction that you hope. And I was looking at, what colleges I was going to go to and what career, and did I want to study abroad and all of these things. And then her transition to adulthood was like, where is she going to spend majority of her time within four walls? And that's a sad comparison, right? Mm-hmm. And still being so young that you're like, gosh, I wish there was more out there for you. But when it really started to take a turn with her not receiving the care that I felt like anyone and everyone deserved, it was like, okay, something has to change here. And so as my family and I sought to look for other programs and other organizations and other things out there that were smaller by design, more personalized, where can she really, where's she not going to slip through the cracks? Where are people going to take a personal interest in who she is and have her continue learning? And we couldn't find that. But what I did find was other families and other people who were looking for exactly the same thing. And interestingly enough, of course, at that time, my job, I was traveling a lot, and my insurance brokerage was out of Dallas, and they said, we're going to move your position to Dallas. And it was then that was kind of at a crossroads, right? Like my family was here, my home was here. And then this kind of crossroads with my sister was happening at the same time. And so my husband is a born and bred entrepreneur. I'm very proud of everything that he's built. And of course, him at that time said, don't you see what's going on here? Like, this could be an opportunity. And so me being young and naive and just so passionate, I said, of course, I'll just, I'll start something, right? And so I did, yeah. So in 2017, I started the Garden Foundation. We didn't open our doors until 2018, but that was really the transition point of when my whole career and really kind of life changed.
Yeah, that's incredible. It's all the lessons and all the in-betweens, right?
Yes.
That takes you to this point where you're like, okay, this is my life's mission. Like all of these things, obviously your sister having Down syndrome, you learning about it, but then you developing your own passion for it, I think alongside your sister, but it's also just innate to you of like wanting to take it to the next level and serve
very much so
this community.
Yes.
So will you tell us a little bit about how the Garden Foundation is different than the rest of the organizations Absolutely. That you have seen?
Yes, yeah. And so the Garden Foundation was really built from the gaps of what I saw within the community. And I really, again, I knew not just my sister, but everyone within her program, within her organization, and honestly, humans in general, right? Like we don't fit in a box. Everyone is so unique and has different ways that they learn and grow, has different passions, interests, has different needs. And I really wanted to build something where families and an individual could come and we would really know them, deeply know their needs and their goals, and really help make their lives more enriched, and felt like we could, transform someone in a way of, okay, after school ends, that doesn't mean that's the end of you learning and you growing and exploring new opportunities. When a lot of times for adults with disabilities, it does look like that. And that's a sad reality. And so, yes, the Garden Foundation was really built to be focused on post-secondary education, for a place where people could really continue learning all of those skills that have been built upon and laid a wonderful foundation within school. Those shouldn't end just because someone turns 22, right? And so we have daily classes where we provide the opportunity for adults with disabilities to really continue learning. And my goal is to provide those same opportunities that I have been given or that you have been given to our adults. So maybe there are experiences that they haven't had, or they would like to try this yoga class out because they've never tried that before. We give people the opportunity of choice, of independence. Our program is also fully inclusive. So what that means to me is that, yes, there are typical same age peers, but there are also individuals within the program that all have disabilities, but are in different stages. So we might have people who are very independent, who are looking for jobs, who are working on social skills and working on vocational training. But then we have people like my sister who are nonverbal, who communicate very differently, who have a lot more needs. And in most programs, everyone is very segregated by the abilities that they may have and the strengths that they may have. And I felt like that is a disadvantage to people. I feel like as a community, we should all learn how to communicate and interact with people who are differently than us, right? Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, it was important to me that the program be inclusive while also being personalized, where each person can be challenged and stimulated in their own ways. And we're really able to do that because our ratios are so small. Our ratios are 1 to 1 to 3, where in a typical classroom or in a typical organization, a great ratio is 1 to 8, where typically it's 1 to 16, 1 to 20. It's really hard to make incremental change with people and work on very personalized goals when you have a ratio of 1 to 8 or 1 to 16. And so the work that we do is so impactful. We go deep, we don't go wide, where we can really impact people in a very big way because the support is there.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for creating this space. I know in our previous conversation on disabilities, we spoke with our mutual friend, Rachel,
yes.
And she definitely opened the conversation for myself on the inclusion conversation, essentially. Sure. And we were discussing inclusion in schools and how these students are put in their own classroom so that they are able to have special attention and what a disservice that is to both the atypical children as well as the disabled children. Absolutely. And I've got to say, you know, as I was just so open to this conversation of like, wow, like I've never thought about it that way, right? Yeah. Like I've only thought about it the way I've been taught to think about it is that like, obviously love those kids and I would help out with them, but they were in that classroom. Sure. And then taking it a step further from, you know, your perspective of what you just said, it's like, wow, like that conversation should never end and there should never be these borders, if you will, for either side.
Yes. And I can imagine what a different world it would be if we all had those experiences as children, when your minds are so open and your hearts are so open and disability becomes less intimidating. It becomes not having these preconceived notions that a lot of us have grown up with, right? If you grow up and you're never introduced or never had the opportunity to interact and engage with someone who has a disability, I can imagine that as an adult, you're like, oh, I don't understand. I don't want to do anything wrong, say anything wrong. And so it's easier to avoid. It's easier to create those borders and those separations. And then it always stays that way, right? And so we grow up in a society that has that. And so that's why I really believe so strongly in inclusion as children, because I think that's when it starts. I think that's when we start building those ideas of what things mean and what things are. And so if we could do that starting younger, it would be so powerful. But that individualized attention, you know, is also important. And so I don't want to think, you know, my sister went to a school that was specific to people with disabilities. And I don't want people to think that's wrong either, because I think it's so individualized and based on the person. And sometimes we get so lost in a label and we get so lost in the word of inclusion that we don't want that person to be disserviced either. And so I think that you have to go with your heart and you have to go with your belief of wherever this person is going to be served the best and wherever this person is going to get exactly what they need. I think that's really important.
Yes. As someone who obviously has grown up in the environment of disability was not something that was scary to you or something that was different, right? Like that was just almost that was your life.
Yes, yes.
What do you see? And then now also as a professional advocate, what do you see is lacking from the atypical side, right? Like I think in my previous conversation with Rachel, we talked a lot about like, okay, how can we better serve the disabled community? But I kind of want to go to a different angle with you as far as like, as the atypicals, as someone who, I mean, for me personally, I have had friends of friends who've had siblings, but it's not directly impacted me.
Sure.
What are the things that we struggle with the most that does really impact the disabled person and make them feel isolated or, you know, that they're not welcome in certain scenarios? And how can we be better?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And I even just appreciate the question because I think, and potentially you've heard this before, but it's like, kids and even adults with disability spend so much time learning how to interact with people. So many hours and classes and all of the things on, these are the tools on how you need to communicate with people who are typical. And these are the ways that you are to be socially acceptable with people. And these are the ways, there's so much time and energy spent on people with disabilities fitting in. And I feel like there's not enough education and training for people who are neurotypical on how to interact the other way. And I think it's this meeting in the middle, right? Of can us as humans just have more empathy? Can we have more compassion? Can we come to someone with an open mind and just not immediately, make a judgment call on this individual's capabilities? Because I think that we can be very limiting in that way. And unfortunately, people with disabilities are not seen to have as much value as others. And I think that's where we're really missing the mark there. And I can only hope that as, advocates pushing things forward, and a lot of growth has happened, and I hope that it continues to go in that direction, that I can only hope that people's minds and hearts will be opened to a community that is so loving and caring, most importantly, capable, a community that is very capable. So as far as what we can do better, I think it's having an open mind and open heart. And I think it's teaching our children. I really do, because I think it starts there to say, in newer generations and people that are growing up, can we start to impact different societal views in how we grow up around people with disabilities?
Yes. And again, this is your world, but you also have 2 babies.
I do.
And you're a mother. How are you prioritizing that as you raise your children?
Yeah, it's such a good question. And it's a beautiful thing. And I love that I get to experience it, to be honest, because I talk about it, and I have talked about it previous to having children. So now that I have these little babies and I get to see their minds work and how they interact with my sister, fortunately for me, because my sister is around all the time and, she's Auntie Lindsay to my babies, that it's this very natural thing that happens. But it's not easy. You have to be intentional in the way that you talk and you teach and you interact, because they're watching you all the time.
I was going to say, I'm sure there's conversations that happen and
there
questions
already
that
are,
come
and
up.
they're so little, right? So I have a 1-year-old and my daughter just turned 3, so very little. And the other day, it will bring me to tears because it's like beautiful and it broke my heart a little bit. But my daughter, she's gem, but so sensitive. She is very protective over me, and everything is mommy. And my sister and I are very close. And so there's always been a little bit of jealousy with my daughter and my sister. My sisters know she's the queen of the family. She gets all the attention. So now she has to share with my daughter. And so they have this, internal princess battle, right?
Yes.
And but we're working on that. And that's what I mean about being intentional, and just really kind of to talk about the relationship and what that means, and how Lindsay interacts and engages differently and that kind of thing. And so my sister's been sick. And so we were over at our house the other day, my mom's house where my sister lives. And I said, let's go tell Auntie Lindsay that we hope she feels better, and we'll tell her we love her and we'll see her tomorrow. And my daughter said, okay, yeah, let's go tell Auntie Lindsay. So we go to her bedroom. We tell her that. My daughter says, like, I love you, Aunt Lindsay. I hope you feel better. And then she looked up at me and she said, does Auntie Lindsay talk? And it was just this beautiful moment of her being curious and being a child. And it was a beautiful moment for me to get to say, like, sorry, that she communicates differently. But it also was like, it was heart filling, because it was like, gosh, she's already wanting to know, what my sister thinks and what she says. And that was beautiful to me. But it's heartbreaking, because I'm like, gosh, I want to know what she says too. And I wish that she could talk too, because all the things she could say, I could just imagine. But it's been this beautiful thing that I get to experience that I'm very grateful for, because I've talked a lot about it as an advocate of talking to children and how to make children more kind and inclusive. And no one's perfect, because it can be hard conversations to have with little kids, right? But I think the importance is that even if you don't know the right things to say, that we are having the conversations. And so, yeah, I'm grateful I get to practice that as well.
Thank you so much for sharing that story. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
If someone's listening and they don't have the blessing of having someone in their home, are there any tips or advice that you could give for either starting those conversations or, I mean, is it as simple and not simple of getting in rooms with kids that have disabilities, other people that have disabilities? How do you recommend that we really start these conversations and change from a young age?
What a great question. I think that's part of my impetus with Dig It. I think that it can be hard if you don't know where to start or say, okay, I'm open to dipping my toe, or you know what, I've never had a direct engagement with someone with a disability. I'm not quite sure what I would say. And to your question earlier, it is as simple as just saying hello. It is as simple as really seeing them as a human first and not necessarily seeing a disability and just saying hello, just saying hi. Oh, my name is, what's your name? And whether this person communicates directly, whether they don't, I think the engagement and the intention of, I see you as a person, I'm looking directly at you, I'm not looking at your caregiver or if someone is with you, I'm engaging with you as a person. I know that my sister is, her receptive language is a lot higher than her communicative and verbal language. And so I can tell when she sees people that interact with her, and it's very beautiful. And I think that's all you could ask, is that you're really engaging with the human first and really seeing them as that before, I realize that people don't want to say anything wrong, or potentially it could be intimidating to interact if you haven't had that interaction before. But I think that you would be beautifully surprised that it's a lot like having a conversation, or it's a lot like interacting with someone else.
And I think people shouldn't be scared to have the conversations or to ask someone like yourself, right? Like to reach out to someone who is in that world, interacts with people with disabilities, has the conversations. I think we're so scared to tiptoe or say the wrong thing or ask the wrong question.
And it becomes this very taboo where I'm like, oh, I think it's so beautiful if someone would ask. I really do.
Yeah. And it's funny because when I asked Rachel to be on, and like I said, we've been friends for many years, I had a little bit of that feeling at first. Sure. I was like, oh my gosh, what if I say something wrong? Do I need to research all of this? And I was like, I would rather just say it wrong and have someone correct me or have someone explain to me the right way to say it or ask a question than to be the person who just already knows it all. And the thing I don't know it all, right?
And I think, I wish it wasn't an intimidating thing. I really wish it wasn't, because I think that's what happens, is that people get scared or they get intimidated because we've grown up in this I stay here and I don't know how to go here. And so I applaud people that are open to just stepping out of that box a little bit and being okay to be wrong. And not that you're wrong. I feel like even if someone were to say something, it's coming from a good intention. And I really believe in that if your goal is to interact with someone, that I don't think you can do it wrong. I really don't.
Yeah. It's all about curiosity and finding the people that are willing to help you on that journey of curiosity. I would love to talk more about Dig It now, because this is so just, when I heard you were starting this, I'm like, this is incredible on so many levels.
Oh, thank you.
And it's obviously a delicious coffee shop, and I've been able to experience it. I would love for you to share with my audience more on the mission and more on the why, and then obviously what this incredible place is.
Yes. So Dig It is a baby that was born out of the Garden Foundation. So it was actually a work training program. Started at the Garden Foundation, obviously, because we teach adults. Work is a big part of adulthood. And I really wanted our people to have that experience of, what is it like to communicate at work and work with a team and have money handling and all of these, different tasks and responsibilities that come along with work, because I've always found a lot of value and purpose in my work. And I feel very grateful for that. And I want to be able to share that opportunity with someone else as well. And so I I love coffee. I'm a big coffee gal. And so, we are in an office building currently in our space at the Garden Foundation. And so it was like, what a better way to connect with people than to bring and sell coffee? Who in an office building wouldn't like that? And so we started pushing around a little cart. I actually have a picture here in my office. That's us with a little coffee cart. We made our own coffee and went around and interacted with other offices within the building. And what I got to see through that experience was, number one, our people are like, when can we work again? And this was so much fun. And they brought all of this energy and value and like joy, pure joy of having that experience and serving other people and feeling that value and pride in themselves. And then I also got to see people who most likely had not had that experience before, had not interacted with someone with a disability before. And they're saying, well, that was the most joyous cup of coffee I've ever received. And when are you guys coming back? And, that was actually a better experience than my experience at Starbucks this morning or wherever they went for their morning coffee, right? And so as I'm watching this happen, because we did it several times to build on these skills, it was like, okay, we've got something here, this beautiful interaction, something really cool is happening here. And so we started this evolution of growth, and we did farmers markets and pop-up events, and people asked us to work their bridal showers and all these types of things. And at each of these events, this was over the span of, 3-4 years, it was like, where can we find you? Do you guys have a shop? And where can, we would love to come and get more coffee from you. And so it was then that the seed was really planted of like, okay, this is really special. I've got something here that I really want to see come to fruition on a bigger scale. And so that's really where Dig It came from. 4.5, 5 years later, we opened our doors to Dig It Coffee, which is obviously our brick and mortar coffee shop in the Arts District here in Vegas. And it has been the most joyous and fulfilling experience I have had. Obviously, the Garden Foundation is so fulfilling in one way, and it's so impactful because we're building all of these skills. But I think what's so cool about Dig It is that it faces our community. It faces the public. We get to create these interactions and experiences for people who may have never had these experiences with people with disabilities. And it's opening their hearts. It's them saying, wow, I've never actually gotten to experience this before. And like, what a beautiful experience. And if that just plants the seed for someone to be a little more kind, or for their preconceived notions to die down just a little bit, or to say, wow, I just really loved that and it made me feel a lot of joy. Like, there's been nothing better than that. And our people having the experience of like, we pay competitive wages, and I was really passionate about that because people with disabilities, it's still legal in many states, including Nevada. The bill is being passed for it not to be, but currently you are still able to pay sub-minimum wage, which could equate to something like 30 cents per packet stuffed, or $3 an hour. Legal for businesses to pay adults with disabilities less than minimum wage. And so I was really passionate about saying, listen, if they're doing the same job, they absolutely deserve equitable pay. And I'm pleased to say that we provide that, and our standards for providing competitive wages are really high. We've had people who have now been able to, get their hair cut and pay for it on their own, to purchase Christmas gifts for the very first time for their family that they've never been able to do. And there's so much progress that needs to happen within that sector that I hope to be a start of the change. And I hope to really show other businesses, like, it's such an asset to have people with disabilities a part of your team and a part of your organization. And if Dig It can do that in so many sectors, it's impactful to the people who work there, it's impactful to the community. And I hope that it becomes impactful to businesses to say, wow, I actually feel like this could be a great thing for our organization as well.
Yes. And as a customer, I have to say, like I mentioned, I own a virtual service-based business. So I spend a lot of time in coffee shops, and I have been to many coffee shops in the Las Vegas area. And the customer service is unmatched in every single way, but in the most joyous way of making sure that even if I got my coffee 2 hours ago, I'm still having a good time, and I'm still happy. And everyone's like, the checking in and just And you can just tell that your employees are allowed to just be themselves. And I think that's a whole other level of conversation, right? Of business owners hiring them and then them not feeling like they can show up in themselves. And you can just tell that they're there, they're excited to do their job, but they're allowed to be who they truly are.
It's so beautiful, and I really appreciate you sharing that you've picked up on that, because a lot of our people some of our people, this is their very first job, and maybe they've applied to 10, 20 jobs.
And that's got to be so nerve-wracking. I mean,
1,000.
I can imagine as me, but like in their space of not ever having been given this opportunity.
Totally.
I mean, they still want to do a great job, right?
Yes. And then we have other people who have come from, some really negative and traumatic experiences in having a job where, as you've shared, they haven't been supported or been authentically able to be themselves, or really just been set up for success, almost have been set up to fail. And so it was really important to me that our mission is really, we want to set you up for success. We want to provide the support and the accommodations needed for you to be successful in your role. And so whatever that looks like for you as an individual, because again, we all learn very differently. We all work very differently, to say, this is the role, this is the job, but how can we support you so that you're able to do it? I think that's really important. And for a business to be able to do that, I wish that it was the norm, right? And I hope that potentially that becomes more typical. But yes, I'm so proud of what we've built, and I'm so proud of our people, because I have lots of team members between both organizations. But our people who have disabilities, I've never had people who love their job more, who are so grateful to just have an opportunity to be working every day, who say, hey, it's a holiday, but can I work? And can I get more hours? And I know that I, worked the party last time, but I really want to work the party again. And, it's such a beautiful thing to say, wow, you love being here. And I'm so proud of them, because they just knock it out of the park, and I'm just so happy that they're enjoying the work that they're doing.
Yeah, it's just as much about the customer as it is about them.
Yes.
And I think, we do live in a world where neurotypical people sometimes aren't the nicest, and you don't have the greatest experience. And it's a shame that we put people with disabilities in this box that says, oh, well, there's nothing for you to do here. You can't do it. And totally. I think what would probably be most shocking to any of our audience who goes in to dig it is that your employees are not just wiping down the tables, or they're taking your orders. They're making your coffee.
Yes.
Like they're doing everything.
Yeah.
And well, like it's not a bad cup of coffee. It's delicious. And like that to me is like, hell yeah, like absolutely they should be doing all types of jobs and they can learn to do it, and it's beautiful.
Yes, it is. Yeah, and I think that's really part of the mission too, right? Is really pushing the limits of what people have deemed possible for people with disabilities. And I don't want that to end at a coffee shop. I have way too many ideas for my own good, but I really, if people have specific interests and specific goals of where they would like to be working, it really is a mission to kind of find a way to help them build those skills to make that happen for themselves. Because I truly believe that, it's not just to get of a place that they can be successful. Like these people are so talented and smart and authentic and capable that I hope that they can find, whether it is Digit and coffee and passion, which thank goodness, because I love our people and I don't want them to go anywhere. But if people have of their passions, they're so capable that I hope to be able to build up those skills so that they feel confident going into a passionate career of their dreams as well.
Yeah, and being able to partner with other businesses and other business owners that are willing to say yes to that and build, quite literally build dreams would be such an incredible opportunity. So what is next for all of your organizations, all the things you're doing, your advocacy, all of that?
Yeah, what is next? That's such a great question. I feel like I live there a lot of, what is next. And for the Garden Foundation, it's really finding a new space. So we've had a waiting list for a couple of years. There's not enough services provided, but I think specifically for what we do in such a personalized manner and nature that people really are seeking that. They want, their loved one and individual to feel like it's about them. and what their goals and interests are. And for someone to take a personal interest and care and not just be a number, I don't know who doesn't want that. And so I hope that, our goal is to grow 1,000%, but really my goal is to grow with intention. Providing quality services and programming for people is so important to me because of the experiences that my own family has had. And so, yes, growth mode is where we're at for the Garden Foundation. And then for Dig It, yes, growth, but I hope to reach more people. I hope to bring more awareness. I hope to create more interactions of people who stumbled upon Dig It because of Yelp, and they were like, wow, this is great coffee. This is fantastic food. I want to be here. And then they have this experience of like, wait a minute, this is something more than, fantastic avocado toast and the best latte I've had. And to create more experiences there. And I hope that I receive so many applications for people who just want to be working, for people who want to find a place to work that allows them to authentically be themselves, but also knows will provide them the support to be successful. And of course, to make competitive wages. I receive applications daily, and it's heartbreaking to say, we're a smaller coffee shop that I don't have as many positions available. So really my goal is to grow, to have more locations for Dig It so that we can provide more opportunities for people. But also in a bigger sense, like you shared, is to partner with other businesses or be a resource or a tool for other businesses to say, hey, I may not know how to do this disability piece, but I'm really open and eager and willing to learn and to bring someone upon my team if they have this specific skill or interest, because they're open to having, someone very capable on their team that I would love to be able to help provide that for people to expand their interests and goals outside of Dig It if that's what they would like to do.
That's so beautiful. Yeah. Before we wrap up, I want to transition a little bit more on your business owner, nonprofit hat. And obviously, you've been doing this for many years. I'm sure there have been tons of ups and downs. But I would love to...
So many.
So many. Probably too many to count. Whenever I tell someone the name of my podcast and explain it, they're like, oh, it just never ends. I'm like,
no,
yeah,
it
that's
doesn't.
kind of the point.
I'm like, which in between? Like, so funny. All of them. All the time.
I would love for you to share, how you've navigated those in-betweens, how you've navigated hard times, and you continue to show up. Obviously, we can say it's your purpose, right? It's what you are here to do. But sometimes we need more than that, honestly. Yeah. And especially as women, as moms. So what is it that gets you through the in-between and to that next phase?
I mean, this is cliche and you kind of already touched on it, but having a strong purpose and a why for what you're doing every single day is really what gets me up some of those days where I'm like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. I don't negate the challenges of being a business owner and a mom to very little children who are very dependent. And, I think also remembering that it's a season has been so helpful for me, that everything is a season. It could be a good, fruitful season, and that may come to an end. It could be winter. It could be, that time when you're a new mom season. I think just knowing that things are seasonal and you will go in a season, and the season could be a really long season or it could be a very short season. But I think just knowing that everything kind of comes to an end at some point. If it doesn't feel really good, that you will come out of this and there will be a new season where things will change. But really, my families and the individuals that I work alongside and have had the privilege to see change in their lives, the testimonials that we receive, or just the simple text messages that we receive, are so impactful that they fill my heart in a way that I truly cannot explain. And I feel very grateful to live my life. I feel very grateful to be this fulfilled by my work, that I get to see the direct impact of what I do every day. I get to go into Dig It and have a fantastic cup of coffee and get to watch someone behind the counter and they're like, oh, I just love my job. And you're like, wow, because I had an idea and because I have this wonderful team of people who also believe in this, that have helped me push this forward, that we've done this for this person that's changed their life in a way. There's nothing more fulfilling than that. I had a parent who shared that, her son has been with us at the Garden Foundation for the past 4 years. He's nonverbal, has never said I love you to her, right? That's something that nonverbal families could understand. And of course you see the love and you feel it in all of these different ways, but to never hear it is a unique challenge, right? And we had been working with him through communication device, and he texted his mom through emojis, love. And for her, she got very emotional because that was the first time she ever really could see that he initiated this communicating of his love for her. And to be able to work with people and have a team of people who work so dedicated and love our people as much and more as I do to help make it that impact in someone's life is just the most beautiful thing I could ever do. And so my work is not done. I don't think it's ever will be done. But I think that is 1,000% what gets me through these days of like, gosh, this is really hard. And I think as entrepreneurs or anyone who has started something that they love, you'll totally encounter those moments many times over. And having something, number one, that you believe in, that you can see the vision, whether other people can or cannot, knowing that you see it. And then these little moments that will happen for you that say, yes, you're on the right track. Yes, you're on the right track. That's what keeps me going.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that. This has been, I could have talked to you for, I think, 3 more hours.
I know. I'm like, what do you mean is that?
We would have had to be sitting at Dig It for that, for sure. Because seriously, I so appreciate just your perspective on life as a whole, as a business owner, as obviously an advocate. And I think I've been so lucky to, thankfully through social media, watch you from afar and, have you as one of my role models. And so to get to be able to interview now and like hear from you why you do what you do and how you do it is just like selfishly so exciting for me. And I just can't wait to share this with everybody else. So thank you so much.
That's very sweet. I'm honestly very honored to chat with you. And when people find interest in my story or find interest in what we do, it makes me happy because I know that, disabilities are that topic that people are like, oh, I don't know if I want to go there. And so people like you who are open and want to learn and say, wow, this is, really cool what you've done. I'm so honored. And the fact that people have even heard of Dig It and come to Dig It and experienced it, like it means so much. I'm totally the person who's like doing the dance and crying, reading Yelp reviews and all of the things. So thank you, because your support and other people's support of what we do, we couldn't do it without that. And it's because of people who come in and have that experience and say, wow, this is really great. It has allowed us to continue. So thank you for your support. It really means a lot.
You're welcome. Well, thank you. I would love for you to share with my audience how they can get involved, how they can follow you. I know I have listeners local to Las Vegas, so obviously if you could give them a little idea of where Dig It is. And then I know you're a nonprofit, so if someone is from afar but wants to learn more, potentially give you a donation or something
or
like
has
that.
questions, or even, they have an adult child or whatever that might look like for someone. I love connecting with people. I've been very blessed that throughout like my career or even just, working in this community, that people have taken the time to chat with me. If I have a question or how do I start this or I'm looking to do this, people would take the time to chat with me. And so I'm happy to do that for others as well. But the Garden Foundation's in the Northwest in Las Vegas. You can find us at thegardenfoundationlv.org. That shares about our programming and our organization and what we do. And digitcoffeeco.com. You can find us both on Instagram as well. That is kind of what we'll share all the good things coming up and what we're doing, all of our events. And if you are in Vegas, please come see us at Dig It. We are downtown in the Arts District, 1300 South Casino Center. We are the pink place on the corner. We painted it pink so you can't miss us.
You can't miss it. I love it. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for listening.
Yes,
I will make sure to add all of this into the show notes. Make sure you follow at In Between Combos on Instagram. Have a great day.